Mmasi had always been a girl of discipline, the kind of daughter that made her mother walk with pride through the village market, her shoulders squared and face lifted high. She was the model student, focused, determined, and untouched by distractions. Books were her companions, school was her sanctuary, and the future was her only concern. Her mother, Chinwendu, had brought her up with strict rules, woven from years of wisdom and caution. A girl who walks too close to fire will be burned, she always said, warning Mmasi against friendships with boys. And Mmasi listened to her mother, holding on to those words like a sacred hymn. From her junior secondary to senior secondary SS2, she had maintained her spotless reputation, always first in her class. No one would ever dare drag the position with her, loved by her teachers and admired by her peers. No unnecessary chatter, no careless laughter, no wandering eyes. But that was before Chizaram walked into her life. It happened in SS3. Chizaram was a transfer student, tall, very soft-spoken, with a presence that turned heads. He wasn't like the other boys, loud, boastful, reckless, rough, stubborn. No, Chizaram was quiet, observant, intelligent, carrying an air of mystery that made people wonder but kept them at a distance. The first time Mmasi noticed him was in the library. She had gone there, as she always do, to study after school, slipping into her usual corner by the window, where the light poured in, just enough for reading. And then, there he was, sitting across from her, flipping through the pages of a literature textbook. She tried to ignore him at first. She wasn't the kind of girl who got distracted by new students. But as the days passed, she found herself noticing things. The way he always read alone. The way he carried his books like they were treasures. The way his eyes lingered a little longer on poetry than on mathematics. Then, unexpectedly, he spoke to her. You like reading too? His voice was deep, smooth, inviting. Mmasi hesitated. She wasn't supposed to be engaging in conversations with boys, but something about the way he asked, soft, unassuming, made it impossible to dismiss. Yes, she answered, keeping her eyes on her book. What's your favorite novel? It was such an innocent question, yet it felt like the beginning of something new. Something that she wasn't sure she was ready for. And so, slowly, everything began to change. She found herself staying longer than usual in the library. Her once strict study routine started changing slowly. Conversations with Chizaram were brief at first, just a few words exchanged between bookshelves, a quiet nod across the classroom. But soon, she started getting used to him. She was looking forward to seeing him, wondering what he would say next. Her mother began to notice subtle changes in her daughter. Mmasi, who always rushed straight home after school, now started coming back late, claiming she had extra studies. Her phone, once an ignored device buried under notes, became something she checked more often. The girl who never paid attention to fashion suddenly started noticing the way certain colors looked on her skin. It was innocent. Just friendship, just curiosity. Or at least, that's what Mmasi believed. But life, like a river, has ways of pulling people into currents they never expected. And soon, she would find herself deeper than she ever thought possible. The days turned into weeks, and the quiet exchanges between Mmasi and Chizaram became something more. Something unspoken, something woven into glances, the soft hesitation before parting ways. It wasn't love. At least, not in the way stories described it. It was discovery. Like stepping into a world she had never known existed. For the first time, Mmasi felt something tugging at the edges of her controlled life. And she didn't resist. But life had its own plans. One evening, as she sat in the parlor reviewing her notes, her mother, Chinwendu, walked in, her arms folded. Mmasi, I have noticed something in you recently. You have totally changed. Mmasi froze, gripping her pen a little tighter. You no longer come home early from school. You don't pray as much. You don't read your book the way you normally do. You are distracted, my daughter. Her mother's voice was sharp but not angry. It was more of an observation, a warning. My daughter, remember, you can always talk to me, your mother. What is going on? Mmasi inhaled, steadying herself. Mama, you worry too much. There's nothing wrong. I'm just studying harder. Chinwendu narrowed her eyes, but she didn't push further. If you said so, my child, I believe you, but remember who you are, my daughter, she said before walking away. For the first time, fear crept into Mmasi's chest, fear that she was walking too close to fire. But something about Chizaram made her want to risk the burn. And so, against everything she was taught, she continued. Mmasi knew she was walking into dangerous waters. She felt it in the way her heart raced whenever Chizaram's eyes met hers, in the way she found herself thinking about their conversations long after they ended. She told herself it was harmless, just friendship, just curiosity, but deep down, she knew she was playing with fire. One afternoon, just as school has closed for the day, Chizaram approached her at the school gate. Hey, I have been calling you. Let me walk you home, he said, panting, his voice calm, his eyes gentle. Mmasi hesitated, looking around nervously. Her mother's warnings echoed in her mind. She had never walked home with a boy before. But something in Chizaram's gaze, something patient, something honest, made her agree. They strolled through the dusty path leading out of the school, the late afternoon sun casting golden shadows over the road. You're different, Mmasi, Chizaram said, breaking the silence. She glanced at him, unsure how to respond. Different? Really? She echoed. Yes, you don't follow the crowd. You think before you speak. You don't pretend to be someone you're not. A small, shy smile tugged at her lips. No one had ever said that to her before. I just focus on what's important, she muttered. Chizaram chuckled. And what's important? She thought about it. Her dreams, her goals, the path her mother had set for her. My studies, my future. He nodded. That's good, but sometimes, life surprises us with things we never planned for. His words lingered in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Their friendship deepened after that walk. It became effortless. Whispers exchanged between classes, shared laughter over books, stolen glances across the hallway. But things were changing. Mmasi started feeling things she had never felt before. An ache when he wasn't around, an unexplainable warmth when his hand brushed hers accidentally. And then, the night that changed everything. It was the night of the school's cultural day, a grand event filled with dance, drama, and storytelling. Mmasi had never stayed out late before, but tonight she convinced herself that one evening wouldn't hurt. The air was thick with the scent of roasted corn and fried akara. Students laughed, drummers played, and performers moved like spirits under the moonlight. And then, Chizaram appeared. Hey Mmasi, what's up? Come, let's go somewhere quieter, he whispered. Mmasi hesitated. She knew this was the moment she needed to say no. But she didn't. She followed him away from the crowd, past the noise, past the glowing lanterns, into a quiet corner behind the school building. What are we doing here? Why did you bring me here? She asked him. Mmasi, calm down, I'm not going to hurt. Okay, but I don't like it here, she said. All right, I promise we won't stay long. She finally calmed down after much hesitation. Why do you trust me? Chizaram asked softly, standing close, too close. Mmasi swallowed. Because you've never given me a reason not to. A dangerous silence hung between them. And then he touched her hand. It was innocent, just fingers brushing against fingers. But it sent a shock through Mmasi's body. A realization, a warning, an invitation. She closed her eyes, trying to silence the storm raging inside her, but she couldn't. And that was the night everything changed. The days that followed were strangely normal, at least on the surface. Mmasi woke up, dressed for school, carried her books, and attended her lessons as usual. She told herself that what had happened was just a moment, a mistake buried beneath her routine. But something was wrong. At first it was subtle. An odd wave of tiredness that settled in her bones. She found herself dozing off during lessons, her eyelids growing heavy against her will. At first she thought it was stress. Maybe she had been studying too hard. Maybe she wasn't getting enough sleep. Then, the dizziness started. Simple things, standing up too quickly, walking across the classroom, sent the world spinning. Her head would throb, her vision would blur for a moment before steadying again. She brushed it off, pretending not to notice the worried glances from her seatmates. But the worst part wasn't the fatigue. It was Chizaram. He had changed. The warmth in his eyes, the quiet moments they once shared, all of it faded. He still greeted her, still smiled when they crossed paths, but the closeness they had was gone. Their conversations, once effortless, became strained. Chizaram, is something wrong? Mmasi had asked him one afternoon, pulling him aside after school. Chizaram ran a hand through his hair, avoiding her gaze. No, nothing is wrong, just a lot on my mind. She searched his face, trying to find the boy she had known. But something was off, something she couldn't quite place. And slowly, a realization settled in her chest like a heavy stone. He was pulling away. At home, her mother began to notice the changes in her. Mmasi, she called her from the parlor. She answered her mother, "Yes, Mama, please." "Ooh," I said, "I will ask you." "My daughter, why are you always tired?" This is unlike you. I thought you to be agile and strong." Enkay asked one evening, as her daughter sat motionless on the kitchen stool, eyes half-lidded. "I don't know, Mama. Maybe I'm stressed." Mmasi mumbled. Stressed now? Ooh, it's well. Chinwendu studied her daughter carefully. She had raised Mmasi to be strong, disciplined. Her daughter never complained, never neglected her duties. But recently she had become different, slow, absent-minded, distant. "You have not washed the plates. You left your wrapper on the floor. You didn't sweep the compound." Mmasi blinked, realizing she had forgotten all of it. Her mother sighed, shaking her head. "This is not like you." And then, almost as an afterthought, Chinwendu's voice dropped lower. "Are you sick?" The word struck something deep in Mmasi's chest, an unspoken fear, a silent scream she had buried under excuses. "No, Mama, I'm fine." But she wasn't. One evening, as she sat alone in her room, staring at the ceiling, the truth hit her like a crashing wave. Her hands trembled as she traced the dates in her mind. The last time, the changes in her body, the moments she had brushed aside. Fear crept into her throat, cold and suffocating. And for the first time she whispered the words she had been too afraid to say out loud. What have I done?" The days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but Mmasi remained oblivious to the truth unraveling within her body. She had always been irregular, or so she convinced herself. Missing her period wasn't alarming, until other signs began to creep in. Her clothes fit differently. The exhaustion was no longer occasional. It was a constant weight pressing her down. She couldn't sit for long without shifting uncomfortably, as though something inside her was stretching, making space where there wasn't any before. She ignored it. She had to ignore it, but deep down, terror whispered its name. One afternoon, after school, as she sat in her room staring blankly at her unfinished notes, her mother's voice sliced through the quiet. "Mmasi!" She flinched. "You didn't pound the yam. You didn't sweep the veranda. What is happening to you? Are you sure you are okay?" Chinwendu's voice held frustration, but beneath it there was something else. Concern. Suspicion. Fear. Mmasi swallowed hard. She had to hold herself together. "Sorry, Mama. I was tired." "Very tired." Chinwendu studied her daughter, her eyes narrowing. "You have been tired for months." Mmasi." The words sent panic rushing through Mmasi's veins. That night, as she lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, she knew she couldn't run anymore. She tossed and turned, her heartbeat wild, her hands trembling, and finally she made a decision. The next day after school, she walked into a small pharmacy near the market, her steps uneven, her breath shallow. I need a pregnancy test," she whispered. The attendant, a middle-aged woman with kind but prying eyes, raised a brow but didn't ask questions. She handed Mmasi the small box. Mmasi paid, stuffed it into her bag and hurried home, her pulse hammering in her ears. Locked in the bathroom, her fingers shook as she followed the instructions. And then she waited. Seconds crawled by like years. And then, 2 lines. Bold. Red. Unmistakable. Her breath hitched. The world spun. She grabbed the edge of the sink, trying to steady herself, but nothing could anchor her now. She counted backward, trying to make sense of it. 6 months. 6 months, and she never knew. How? She had seen the symptoms, felt the exhaustion, the changes, the nausea, but she had buried them under denial. Now there was nowhere left to hide. She stumbled out of the bathroom, her face pale, her body numb. Her mother saw her. "Mmasi, what is wrong with you?" Mmasi opened her mouth, but the words refused to come. Tears spilled instead. Chinwendu stared. Confusion flashing into realization. And then, horror. "Mmasi, no, no!" She grabbed her daughter's shoulders, shaking her, as though the truth could be undone. But it couldn't. It was real. It was there, and it had shattered everything. Word spread fast. By the next day, whispers floated through the air like wildfire. Her schoolmates stared, her teachers sighed, her once pristine reputation lay in ruins. Chizaram avoided her. At first, she tried to reach him, to talk, to find comfort in the person who had been part of this. But when she finally found him behind the school building, he looked at her with something cold and unfamiliar. I don't know what you are saying," he muttered. Her lips trembled. You don't know what I'm saying." "Ah, I'm finished. Chizaram, it's me. Ooh, just tell me you're with me." But he hesitated, and in that hesitation she knew. She was alone. Her mother never looked at her the same way again. Her father didn't speak a word, just sat in silence, shaking his head. Her dreams crumbled beneath the weight of reality. No university, no future, just regret. And one cold night, as she sat outside under the stars, she whispered the words she had fought so hard to avoid. "I have ruined everything." Lessons to be learned from this story. One moment of weakness can change the course of a lifetime. Decisions made in secrecy often lead to painful consequences. It is important to listen to wisdom, think beyond temporary emotions, and never underestimate the weight of responsibility. Hi besties, we have finally come to the end of this amazing story. Hope you all enjoyed it. Please drop your opinion about this story in the comments section. I can't wait to hear your own opinion about this story. Alright besties, thank you so much for watching and staying to the very end. I really appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. It's free, as it helps us keep bringing you more amazing stories. Do well to like, share, and comment. Thank you once again for sticking with us. I will see you in our next story. Bye for now.